turn that light on. Make sure we're rocking and rolling. Yes, sir. Anyway, so yeah, I like to go live at least once a week. So that hasn't been the case. I've been inconsistent. So I would like to try. So let's start here. I just said the word try. That's not the most confident word to use. I would like to go live once a week. They're going to be unannounced. I'm just going to talk strictly wood. So right now, I just got done with my last obligation that I need to do for the next 7 days. And it was to take my wife to an event. She has an ice cream cart. We went to her down there. She sold her goods, her push pops. Now I have the ability to load my truck up and get it completely ready to cut wood. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I have lots of logs that I need to cut. I just cut down like a 60-inch wide walnut tree. If you can see this slab, it's about to go on a stack. It's the only one here. Let's see if we can get situated where it can be stood up and leaning. Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere. So let's talk about, we're going to talk about the entire situation with that tree, okay? We're going to talk everything about what it took. I'm trying to zoom out a little bit. The cost. Okay, so a person reached out to me, let's say 14 days ago. A guy reached out to me and he said that he had a big walnut tree and it was by his house. Okay, so you have a 60-inch wide walnut tree at the flare, 45-inch diameter breast height, diameter, so 45 inches diameter breast height. So, a very big tree. I dug out an entire foot around the base of the tree just so I can maximize the flare, okay? So there was extra time spent there. I started this job last Monday, so I was there prepping the site, Tuesday there prepping the site, and these are half days, these aren't full days, these are just like going out there getting a plant. Anytime I harvest trees, so I have a plant, so let's just kind of start off the bat. I have access to over 10,000 acres in the state, okay? In my state, I can go on to 10,000 different acres. And a lot of this land is, farmland. There's no trees on it. There's a lot of this land. There's a lot of trees on it. There's a lot of cows on it. So you kind of have to be responsible. These landowners get paid for the trees that I cut. I'm the only person that has access to the trees on this land. So, and what just recently happened a few weeks ago, which I'm really excited to go venture out and explore. So currently, that 10,000 acres I'm referring to, I know where every single walnut tree is on all these lands around my area. And this isn't necessarily, very close to me. These are all over my state. So there's hundreds of trees that are extremely healthy, 18-inch diameter breast height. They don't show any signs of decline. So these trees are, they're assets to me. I don't want to cut these trees. There's actually many times where I come in and I'll prune certain things on certain trees just because I know at one day in time that tree will need to be harvested, but right now it doesn't need to be harvested. Outside of those, really healthy trees, there's probably 100 trees that need to be cut down. So these are trees that, let's say, they're 20-inch diameter, 24-inch diameter, 30-inch diameter. And even there's a few 16s and a few 18s. And I have videos on my YouTube that show, smaller diameter, walnut, because forests haven't been thinned. And, smaller diameter walnut trees actually can die in a forest because, other trees haven't been cut out. So there are a few 16 and 18-inch diameter walnut trees on these properties that need to be cut out because you look up at the top and there's cogs, okay? a cog shouldn't be in a 16 or 18-inch diameter walnut tree, okay? That's a sign of a dying tree. And also, other branches, whenever you have branches up in the top of a tree and you see bark and just falling off, and there's, 30% or so, there's not growth in 30% of the area in, the canopy, that's a sign that, that tree needs to be cut out. So, referencing kind of that scenario, I like to, come in and it will be like 3 or 4 trees at a time. So, I need to come into a property, I need to cut, a few trees out because they show signs of decline. I know that, past experience, if I don't cut these trees out now, and in 4 years, it's a potential that they'll be yellow at the stem, at the base cut. Whenever you cut the tree down, you're going to see yellow at the stem. That is a tree that should have been harvested many years ago. So that's the ultimate goal, is cut a tree out whenever it's in mid-life cycle, whenever it shows decline, or a mature tree. Keep 12, 14, 16-inch wide walnut trees, healthy trees, maybe do a little bit of, a few things to them so they can become 30 and 40-inch wide walnut trees at one point in time. So kind of sustainably managed forest. So that's what I love doing. It's a blessing to have access to all this land, but what I was mentioning is, a few weeks ago, landowner told me, I just bought another 1,000 acres, okay, so I have another, mile of property I need to go explore. I've never stepped foot on. I've stepped foot on probably a quarter of it because, there's a pond and a creek, and, we've done fishing and, stuff like that. So I've seen a little bit of it, but I'm extremely excited to go explore this new land that I have access to cut any tree that I desire to cut on. And whenever I cut trees, I pay my landowners, in cash. So I would say probably $10,000 to $15,000 I've paid out in the past, few years, just purchasing, standing walnut trees that are in decline. I come in. If it's a really big diameter walnut tree, I'm going to have my buddy climb up the tree, he's going to dissect the tree, he's going to, drop all these branches in the tree, he's going to create a complete stem. We're going to fall this tree in between other trees without hurting the other trees. It's going to be a low impact harvest, a selective harvest. We're going to pull the logs out, slice up the material, sticker it, and kind of forget about it. And that's kind of like my process. So like all my inventory is standing right now. Currently, I'm either gaining board footage or I'm losing board footage. And the loss of the board footage is because I'm not currently taking out every single tree that needs to be taken out at this particular time because I physically can't do it. So it's kind of like a small scale situation. I have probably 15 different, sawmill setups I need to go do in the woods that I have access to, and cut trees out. After you cut these trees out, you have to bring all this material back. My logs, my trees, they don't sleep on the ground. They don't sleep on the ground like a day. Whenever I cut trees out, I slice them up like within 24 hours. The materials, put on my trailer, or it's put on my truck, depending upon how many days I'm staying out there. One day will fill up my truck completely. I have an F350. I'm also going to pull this sawmill out. All work will be done by me. I'll follow the tree. Every branch is going to be touched by me. I'm going to put these branches in a nice pile. Let's say a ravine that the landowner wants me to pile material into. And, the area will look better now after I cut the tree out than when I came. I don't want to come in and cut all these different trees out, leave all these tops and, other trees, like leave a bunch of liabilities, hanging everywhere for a landowner to deal with. Because there has been over a dozen times loggers come onto a landowner's property. So let's say a landowner has 1,000 acres. He had, a logger come onto the property with, big equipment, and they come in, take all the stems, and a lot of the canopies are hung up in other trees, and those canopies are like 15 feet in the air, and the stem's missing, the mess is still there, the logger's gone, the landowner's been paid, but the landowner's a little disgruntled, okay? And there's also some logs still on the property that the logger never took, okay? That landowner will reach out to me, and they'll try to sell me logs that the logger didn't want, okay? Well, I don't want to buy them. I don't desire to buy the degraded and the insect infestation logs that the logger didn't desire to actually procure, process, and take out. Instead, he cut every single walnut tree down on the property. He took the best logs. He took them out of state. They're probably actually going to go out of the country, and you're never going to see them again. Landowners left with the mess. This has happened probably 15 or 20 different times. Those landowners reach out to me. They try to sell me logs. I tell them I'm not buying the logs because I didn't cut them down, and because I don't find them to be valuable logs. I tried to talk them into having me come out there. I'll cut your pile on the halves, so you get half the material. You don't have to pay a dime. I'm gonna get half the material. I'll do all the work. Just put me on the piles. So that's what I like to do. I'll cut it into charcuterie stock. I'll cut it into cookies, and I'll cut it into material that I'll sell within a few days. So that's all I do over the past decade. For the past 12 years, I've been kind of hustling wood. So at one point in time, before 2018, like 17, 16, 15, 14, used 13, I had videos in 13 of massive military equipment taking logs off my trailer and loading them onto other sawmills. So it's just been a really interesting journey. It hasn't been I'm not a millionaire by any means. It hasn't gotten me extremely wealthy. There's lots of work behind this sawmill, so if you expect to get a sawmill and become wealthy and extremely very lucrative thing, it can be in some aspect, but I would totally disagree. The sawmill slab market, I've been selling wood for over a decade. It's flooded, okay? There's many people trying to sell slabs. If it's kiln dried, air dried, fresh off the mill, there's tons of options out there, okay? My business model isn't to rely on the sale of wood to provide for my lifestyle. My lifestyle comes from cutting logs for people around the state of Oklahoma. So I have cut for over 240 people in the state. A lot of these people are repeat customers. They call me once a year, 2 times a year, 3 times a year, 4 times a year. They need me to cut their logs on their properties. They know that at one point in time I used to be $100 an hour for 6+ years, $100 an hour cutting logs. I've cut thousands of logs. And then 3 or 4 months ago, I changed my price from $100 to $150. And when customers reach out to me, they don't care about the increase of price. Because whenever I used to cut for $100 an hour, they thought they were getting an extremely good deal. And at one point in time, and a few different people, they told me that they feel like I can actually charge more for my services after I cut for them. So I haven't had any pushback at the $150 an hour plus setup fee. If we hit metal, it's going to be $30 a blade, okay? I use 100% brand new blades. I'm going to flip the camera around here in a little bit and show you a few things around the storage, but there's 300 or 400 blades right there, one-time use, anywhere from 1 to 7 or 8 or 10 hours per blade. I've never resharpened them. I will not spend $1 on those blades to get resharpened. I won't pay anybody to resharpen those blades. One day, I think it's a BMS 250 or something like that. It's like $5,000 bucks. So I'll get this machine, I'll allocate a 10 by 10 space, I'll be able to resharpen all those blades again. It'll resharpen them, it'll set them, and I'll be able to have a large stockpile of brand new sharpened blades, because I'll get a sharpener at one point in time. But until then, I like pushing a button and paying the $1, and the brand new blades come to my door. And anytime I need a new blade, I pay for a brand new blade. I like to have dozens of brand new blades so I'm prepared for the job. Let's talk about preparedness, okay? Let me grab a few things. You know, this is important. You know, so if you have this sawmill, this is my second wood miser. Let's see if we're still rolling before I got interrupted or whatnot, okay? We're on. So if you're gonna have a wood miser, I highly recommend you have an extra drive belt, okay? So let's say, you know, I have cut for over 240 people in the state. Let's say at one point in time my drive belt failed. I anticipated to make X amount of dollars to, you know, put in that risk and reward, you know. There's dollars spent to get to every property. This unit cost me X amount of dollars a month. This sawmill I paid for in cash, second sawmill, bought it in the height of COVID. Everybody was getting shots and everybody was like freaking out. I never got vaccinated or got a shot. I'm not trying to get political or anything like that. If this isn't the channel for you, unsubscribe. I would love for you to unsubscribe. I think I have like 1,900 subscribers on YouTube. Thank God, I'm extremely thankful for all the subscribers that follow along, but if it isn't the channel for you, you know it's not. So in 17, I bought my first sawmill, gasoline, fantastic machine, had like 500 hours on it. 2020 hit, people were freaking out, lumber prices were sky high, and the price of sawmills, I feel like I was able to get more for this sawmill than I paid for it. So I sold my gasoline sawmill. It was an LT40 in 2020. Whenever I bought that machine, it was like a 3 or 4 week wait time, and it was brought to my house, and I didn't pay any taxes on it. And then on this machine, whenever I bought it in 2020, it was a 6 week wait time. So I bought it after I sold my other one. So I bought my other one for like 27 or 28,000. I sold it for like 30,000 cash. Okay, I bought this one for 41,000 cash. In 2020. Right now, I think it would cost me 55 or 59. There's a deal going on. So anyway, so this sawmill is worth more than I paid for it. But what I'm getting at is if you were at any of your sawmill jobs in the past and your drive belt failed and you weren't going to be able to complete your job, what are you going to do? You know, if you don't have extra B57 belts on you, I even keep other ones that have been spent. Like, there's no like fray on any of the situations. They're worn down, but I also bring those with me. So, you know, brand new B57 belts, up and down belt or power feed belt, you know, either one. I don't know which one's which. I have it. So any belt that goes with this machine, you know, you kind of need to have because things fail. I've had many things fail on this sawmill mechanically, not electrically. I'm very thankful that I haven't dealt with any electrical problems on my sawmill because that would be a complete nightmare. I know of people that have dealt with electrical problems on the sawmill, and when it comes to electrical problems on the sawmill, I'm not solving those problems. So I'm very thankful. I haven't had any electrical problems or any malfunctions with like major components with the sawmill. This motor on this, board return did fail. I told them within warranty in like 2020. They sent me a new motor. I tapped on it with metal. It's been working ever since. So I have a spare motor for that, which is pretty cool. So anyway, so like being prepared. Anytime you bring this machine out, you need to be prepared. This slab is 3 inches thick. It was cut 4 days ago. Like I said, I am going to flip the camera around. We'll talk about the unit. There's 10 times the amount of wood at my house than I have in here. But this slab's 3 inches thick. So a 3-inch slab, going air dried, is not going to dry in 3 years. You're not going to dry this slab air dried in 3 years in Oklahoma. It's going to take 5. Okay? It's going to take 5 years to bring this piece of wood to a dry state. Right now, this piece of wood, if somebody wanted it, I have 4 or 5 wood buyers that are coming tomorrow, customers. These are new customers that are going to they'll be visiting me after I get out of church tomorrow. There's 3 or 4 of them, and I don't know which one's going to grab it, but they're all talking about it. So I'm looking forward to getting this. I don't think I'm going to have to lay it down. Somebody's going to snatch it for $200. They might actually, if they want to do it right, they would put it in a vacuum kiln. I know a buddy that has a vacuum kiln. If I wanted to dry this piece of wood, I could have this piece of wood dried within the next 45 days. And that's assuming I could be able to fall into his schedule, because he's completely, slammed when it comes to drying wood and stuff, because he sells wood, and he has multiple not DH, but vacuum kilns. They're each $3,000 unit. So if you need to get this piece of wood dry, I think it would cost $3 per foot, and you could get it dry, within the next 2 months, assuming you could fall into one of his cycles and you had space and you were able to make that happen. So that's why the price is $200 right now on this particular piece. The other slabs that I have on my trailer aren't for sale. They're going to be going in my backyard. I will sit on them for 5 years. Let's turn the camera around, and we need to get rid of this video because, I'm in a pretty large, leverage trade right now. I trade Bitcoin every single day. So this is a stack. So this is all green material. This is been cut for like a month, but I don't care about it. It's kind of like just chilling, This is the Lucas mill, Let's turn this light on. So this can cut 76 inches wide. These were cut in 2020. These were one of the first logs they cut with this machine, okay? These were cut in 2020. I should sell this piece of wood for $1,500, okay? Well, there's only a few clients that buy pieces of wood at that particular price point from me, and these don't hit the specs. They're a little narrow in the middle. But so this piece of wood right now, this is a dry piece of wood. I believe it's going to read under 12% moisture content, but this is $700, okay? And this has been cut for 5 years. There's metal in it. Unfortunately, you can get that metal out, and you could throw this through a big old situation and get it nice and flattened, but they need some work. So are you willing to spend $700 to grab one of these pieces of walnut? A wrecking company in my state reached out to me. This tree was going to go in the green dump landfill. If I didn't save that tree that day, no one else was available. No one else, was willing to bring a empty trailer out to, have a massive claw just put this, log on, their trailer and, haul it out of there. I gave the operator of the Traco $100. I was like, hey man, thank you so much for loading that onto my trailer. I gave him a $100 bill. This tree cost me $100. Okay. I had to pay for the diesel for my F-350 to go, pick it up, and I had to make myself available. I make myself available because I've been working for myself for 15 years, so, I don't really have a boss. My only boss is going to be my wife, so that's that. This is still green. This needs to go in a stack. So this particular piece of wood, this isn't going to stay flat. This is flat right now. You see all that sapwood right here? 100% guarantee this piece of wood's gonna go like that. If you put this piece of wood in a nice, stack, like if I put that in between some nice solid brown, heartwood, this board could potentially move your stack 3 inches because of the movement this is gonna create. The movement this will create in a stack is tremendous. So if you don't have your stacks weighted down or strapped, I don't even put those pieces in like that. I'll give that to somebody for free. That's a free piece of wood. You come visit me, I'll give you that for free. So anyways, so let's put you back on the tripod. Here's, you can't really see it, but they're coiled up. I used to get my blades from Wood-Mizer. This is my fresh coil, so that's the one I'm adding to. There's only like 15 there, but I coil them up, so there's like 30 in a coil. There's like 12 or 14 different coils stacked up back there, just one-time use blades. These are logs. I like to cut these logs and salvage them. There's no bugs in these logs. There's no powder post beetle in these logs. These logs didn't sleep on the ground for, a few hours, and I put them in my truck, debarked them that day, and I like to use those for weight. Somebody will come in here one day, like, man, that's really cool. I was like, man, it's $60, you can have it. $60 or $100 or whatever it is. I don't care what it is. It can be replaced. But all this wood, this will be ready. Actually, this stuff might be ready Christmas. Okay. I'm in a pretty good situation as far as weather and temperature in this unit. It's like 120 degrees in here. Having these doors open, multiple hours throughout the day to kind of release that humidity is extremely important.
I have somebody that will tap into that wire, and I could throw a humidifier in there. But anyways, so that's kind of the wood miser sawmill business. Very small business. Every time people are like, man, your sawmill looks brand new. You never use it. It's like, man, anytime I use this sawmill, I use it for customers sometimes, and they have a bunch of bugs in the logs. I take it to the car wash, spend $5-10, get it nice and clean. It's ready to cut logs. It's bug free. There's not going to be a bug from another person's log that's going to crawl over here and jump on this piece of wood, because I like to keep my machine. This is the golden goose of the family. Okay, I spent $41,000. I didn't finance the machine. I literally sacrificed so many things so I could buy this machine. I took lots of dollars out of my bank account to buy that, So it's not a cheap thing. So to finish this video out, we're gonna talk about this log. I said I was going to do it, and I haven't done it yet. Total cost breakdown on this tree. So if you want to see videos of this process, you have to go to my Instagram. So Instagram has over 50,000 followers. I haven't paid for $1 for a follower, so it's kind of organic, growth. At one point in time, many years ago, Instagram and Facebook, actually, Facebook still does, they pay me on a monthly basis, just for, sometimes videos kind of will pop off and they give you money. So, those are really cool. It happened a lot more in the past. Currently it hasn't really been happening. Like, my videos haven't really been popping off on Instagram because I wasn't consistent. I'm not engaging with my followers. I just at one point in time, posting reels, every single day, there'll be like millions of views on some of them, and you've got like thousands of different followers following you. It's like it's super cool, but it's not like they're not paying my mortgage. I'm trying to prove to like whoever it is that I cut wood and I have a sawmill and I cut logs every single day or all the time or sometimes or whatever, and it's like I'm just a normal person. I decided to buy a wood miser, second wood miser, decided to buy a Lucas mill. I'm able to cut the logs that people want to cut. Like, I honestly didn't buy the machines for people. I didn't buy this machine that, man, I want to buy this machine to cut wood for people. There was a few years, I didn't even want to cut for people because I bought this machine to cut for myself. I spent over $20,000 paying somebody to cut my logs on another sawmill. I used to be able to shake their wheel over here, left and right, because their bearings were going out. So the cuts that sometimes I would get from these individuals, the timelines that I got for this from these individuals, the lack of consistency or the communication that I got from these individuals, I knew that I needed to put this tool in my tool bag, because working for yourself, like, I've been working for myself for 15 years. Like, I worked for myself for 15 years. It's been such a blessing, but it's been so hard, guys. Like, I would consider myself an entrepreneur. Working for yourself can be so rewarding, but it can be so challenging at the same time, because there's no one telling you what you need to do to execute, or what ChatGPT and all the fancy technology that we have these days. You can definitely utilize that and leverage yourself to really produce and stuff like that. But working for yourself, you have to constantly just push forward. There's weeks on end where I'm just grinding and doing workloads and not receiving any dollars in my pocket. So you got the storage unit that you have to pay for, you got your mortgage, you got your wife, your 2 kids, you got a 3rd kid on the way. I do have a truck payment, her car's paid off, we kind of have the car and like the house that's not paid off. I'm so thankful. My best investment is going to be real estate. Buying a house, fixing it up, selling it. Buying a house, fixing it up, selling it. And we're in our 3rd house, and like we got into like 7 or 8 years ago. It has been the most rewarding investment to date. Bitcoin will be number 2. Okay, anytime I sell a piece of walnut, okay, this has been going on for years, I convert the dollar into BTC. This is not a scam. I'm not like, oh yeah, Bitcoin's like $101 or $104 or $2,000 or $3,000. I'm down like $100 right now on a leveraged trade. I don't care if I lose $180. You know, it's my stop loss. Yeah. So like, I love to cut logs for people. I love selling wood, and I love turning walnut and slabs into Bitcoin. I think it's smart because they continue to print the dollar. Today, you know, Trump just dropped a bunch of bombs on Iran. I think it's fantastic, okay? The man comes in, and I don't necessarily agree with 100%. This isn't to get political. Unsubscribe, okay? The man comes in, and there's been many years of somebody threatening Israel, okay? The man comes in, and he, you know, destroys, you know, 3 different sites today. It's like a historic event. I think that's, I think that's interesting. So I don't know how I got onto that tangent, but you know, this is kind of a live video. So the markets are very interesting. Trading the markets for the past 20 years. I took a pause for 7 to 8 to 9 years, but the markets are going to be where you can accumulate wealth the fastest, in my opinion. Okay? I do believe one day I will not have to work, and it's going to be because you strategically invest. Don't spend above your means. Continue to invest, continue to grind, but you have to invest. If you're still in an apartment or if you're still renting a house right now, I would highly encourage you to stop throwing your money down the drain and invest in a house. Get the mortgage, okay? Get the mortgage. And I'm not necessarily saying right now. I don't know what rates are, so I think it's important to invest. This might look like a wood miser behind me, and I still haven't gotten to the price breakdown on this log, but I think it's extremely important to invest in your future. You need to always invest. I am not a financial advisor. I don't advise you to buy Bitcoin. I don't think you should buy Bitcoin and you're gonna become a billionaire at these prices. I think it's extremely volatile. I think it's extremely risky. So don't think this is financial advice. Let's get down to the breakdown of this price on this log, and we'll kind of so I have 15% battery, so we need to hurry it up. Okay, so I spent $1,000 on a 60-inch wide walnut tree, okay? That's typically the price that I pay for big trees like that. Customers sometimes want more for them, okay? Every time they reach out to me, they want more. Well, I tell them I'm willing to spend $1,000. So this particular tree, I spent $1,000 on, so gave my landowner $1,000. We come in, I spent $350 to have my buddy come in 3 hours. He was able to climb up the tree, he was able to dissect it. He dropped all the branches like he needed to drop safely, avoiding any liabilities. After he dropped those branches, I'm $1,350 in, okay? I also needed to spend $350 on the Lucas chains. I spent $350 on new chains from a Lucas mill so I could, eat through the log. So $1,350 plus the $350, let's just say that's $1,700, okay? And then let's also say $100 in diesel fuel, okay? $1,800. And I have the sawmill. It cost me $1,800 to get this log processed. And that's not talking about my time. It was 5 days of my time. 5 days of my time, 3 half days, 2 full days. And then I'm still, dealing with that situation to this day. All slabs have been stickered. This slab's gonna move very quickly, and I won't have to touch it again. So, like $1,800, I was able to process a, 60-inch wide walnut tree, 45-inch breast height, and it had lots of saw logs. There's some saw logs right here from that tree, so that's a fantastic situation. I also need to go back out there again. I can cut probably 200 cookies and charcuterie cuts. There's a bunch of small material I do want to cut. I haven't cut it yet because the last time I went out there with the wood miser, I filled my truck up in 5 hours and I left. And I need to go out there again. Right after I left, it rained, okay? It's dry, it's ready for me to go out there and harvest the rest
in the remainder of the material. After I accomplish that goal, I'm going in the woods, and I'm going to go cut down 4 or 5 different walnut trees that I already know of, that need to be cut down. I already have the plan established. I already know exactly what I need to do to, kind of achieve my goals. I'm going to go make that happen. I'm going to have the grill, have multiple coolers, refreshments, lots of water, a bunch of meat. And then, you go out through the woods, cut the trees down properly, make sure you don't have a bunch of collateral damage, clean for mess, make sure landowner's happy, pay the landowner, load everything up, and get back home. It's going to be a 2-day process. It's going to involve my truck and my sawmill. It's not going to involve my trailer. It's going to be multiple trips with my truck. I'm actually going to be leaving some of the wood in the woods, and I'm going to come back and get it, multiple, times. I don't typically do that. The only reason I'm doing that right now is because I have 60-inch wide, like 14 feet of walnut slabs on my trailer, and I physically can't move them. I physically can't take them off my trailer. I set my Lucas mill downhill, okay? After, I cut this massive log. So this log, I had to cut 3 to 4 feet off of the butt, so that flare that I dug around, I actually had to cut all it off. It took me 3 hours to remove that piece after I cut it off the main situation. And the reason I had to do that is because there was metal. There was metal all throughout the log. I continued to eat metal. My blades weren't liking it. I still didn't, put my brand new blades on at that point. I attacked all the metal with old blades. And I just knew I needed to cut it off. So I cut it off. I reduced it from 17 feet to 14 feet. And this is the smallest slab. This slab actually was cut with my wood miser. It was one of the last pieces of I cut 7 or so slabs. I actually also had to take off the top because there was metal on the top in some portions. So I took 12 inches off the entire log, and hour and a half later, got it aside. And then that's the main fuel. That's what I was able to achieve. I did have to waste some wood because the metal. I did have to reduce the stem 3 feet. Very challenging, but I was able to produce. So it cost me $1,800 to achieve my goals here. But the reason I can't use my trailer is because the slabs are 60 inches wide by 14 feet. I can't move them. I actually rolled them onto my trailer because I was set downhill. I was using rollers. I also used the jack. I need to move 3 different 16-foot slabs that are dry that were cut 2020 from one of my platforms. I need to remove them. They're going to be stacked back here in the next week and a half because they're dry. They will sell eventually. Once I remove those 3 slabs, I will have a new platform that's nice, flat, and level, and I'll put those 7 slabs that are on my trailer onto that platform. But until then, it's probably going to be a month out before that happens. I'm going to have to do all harvest with my truck. I can get like 1,000 board feet in my truck, sometimes more than that, and I can still pull my sawmill back home and put it away. So I don't like to leave the sawmill in the woods without me there. Anytime this sawmill is in the woods sleeping, I'm going to be sleeping with it, in the tent or in the back of my truck. So, phone's probably dead, video probably died, but man, wood miser business. God bless you guys. 2 in a row. Keep grinding and follow your dreams. We're 38 minutes in. So yeah, and whenever you stand slabs up like this slab probably weighs like, I don't know, like 300 pounds or something, but it's really heavy. But it doesn't look heavy because you can just kind of bounce it around, assuming you have a nice flat cut. So, like I said, I got 3 people coming tomorrow. I had 2 different people come here today. They actually chose seasoned wood whenever they come here to buy green wood. I always tell them, hey, I told you, this is fresh off the mill. This isn't dry. They don't care because it's $200. They want it. They buy it, do their thing. So, I don't recommend ever trying to glue up green wood. If you are going to take a green piece of wood and turn it into a table, just know, and I always tell people, that piece of wood might warp. That piece of wood, you might have mold in an area that's, kind of contained because, it's not dry. That piece of wood should cure before it gets finished into a tabletop. Half the time, listen to me, they don't choose it. They go ahead and choose a dry piece of wood. Dry pieces right there. I showed you earlier in the video. those $700 pieces, they're cut in 2020. So that would be like my recommendation. You're trying to build a desk. Well, that's a pretty cool desk. You know, use that piece. Don't use this piece. I would love to sell this to you for $200. But just know, I just cut it. It literally just came off the mill. It was living like 10 days ago, 5 days ago. So like, it's not my recommendation for you to, work this piece and expect it to stay flat, after you do that. You also are going to, induce case hardening, okay? Case hardening is when the outside, the shell of the piece of wood hardens. The inside of the piece of wood is going to still be green, okay? Case hardening is a situation that happens a lot whenever people don't properly dry the pieces of wood, so that's an important situation. Wood moves, temperature, different temperatures. If you bring a piece of wood from an outdoor setting into an indoor setting, that piece of wood might move, okay? If that piece of wood, like I would recommend, like this piece of wood used to be 3 times as heavy as it used to be. Like whenever I used to, pick this piece of wood up, it would take like 3 times as much strength to lift it up. This piece of wood's seasoned. This piece of wood's dry. This piece of wood's been cut for over 2 years. So like, if you wanted to turn this piece of wood that's, let's say, $160 into some charcuterie boards, like that would be my recommendation. Or if you wanted to do a shelf, if you wanted to do a real table, like that would be my recommendation. And there's like hundreds of different recommendations of like seasoned wood that I have. I don't have a bunch of 2-inch pieces of wood right now. I do have like tons of 2-inch pieces of wood in my house that have been cut for over 2 years. But you gotta think, it's been raining a lot, here recently. So I'm not necessarily saying they're gonna be 12%. I actually probably need to pull them, in the month of August. I'm gonna pull them in here, put them in here at temporary stock, and I think they're gonna be doable. I think they'll be under 12% moisture content, and I think I'll really sell them to some people. I actually would have to say is maybe 40% of my wood goes to Texas. So I got people that buy wood for me, and a lot of wood for me, and they sell the wood elsewhere. So really appreciative of them. They've been grinding a lot lately. Shout out to them. Anyways, guys, I appreciate you. Just a random ramble on the sawmill business. If you want to get a wood miser, and maybe you say you like the videos and you want to get a wood miser, I would highly recommend, let's say if you have a tractor, and let's say you might not have $40,000 to spend, let's say you have like 10 to 15,000, get an LT15 wide with power feed. So if you have a tractor, you can get LT15 wide and cut 34 inches. That's wider than my cut. I can only cut 32.5. Some people are going to argue on this video that I can cut 34. Well, guess what? A new LT40 wide Super can cut 34. Mine only cuts 32.5. Am I frustrated about that 1.5 inches? A little bit. I wish I could cut 34 inches. That's not the case. I can only cut 32.5 inches wide, maximum on this machine. And that's also assuming, your diameter of your log is extending this, because there's a few inches. If you have your log stops right here, and your log is always buttoned up right here, your can's always buttoned up right here, there's space right here worth of cuts that you can kind of get a wider cut, depending on how you position your log. So the maximum cut on this machine is 32.5. But like I was saying, if you want a sawmill, get an LT15 wide with a power feed option. You're going to have a 34-inch wide cut. You're going to have like a 10 to, I don't know the exact price. Go to woodmiser.com. I'm not sponsored or affiliated by them by any means, but go to woodmiser.com. You can build your own machine. Put an LT15 wide. You might have different engine options. A gasoline engine has kind of a lifespan. Like a gasoline engine might go out at 1,000 hours. So that's kind of what I thought in 2020 when I had a gasoline engine with 500 hours. I'm like, I want to sell this for $30,000 and get a diesel. So get an LT15 wide, pick your engine, and have a lower price point, and you're able to take your wood miser, set it up on a concrete slab, get your tractor, you have a homestead or you have some land. Cut your trees down, slice your material up, and you're able to achieve your goals. I would highly recommend you avoiding what I did. I spent 4 to 5 years spending hundreds, I would say over $20,000, paying somebody to cut my logs. Over $20,000 I spent to pay somebody to cut my logs. Before, in 2017, I purchased my first sawmill. It was like 17 or 18. It was when I got my first sawmill. You know, I used to spend lots of money in, you know, cutting logs for people. So if you plan on cutting logs for, you know, the years to come, just buy your own sawmill. Just, you know, bite the bullet, buy your own sawmill. If you can't obtain a hydraulic sawmill and you just want a sawmill, get an LT15 wide. It'll achieve all your goals. Don't expect to, you know, like, you know, cut a ton of wood, you know, super fast, but you'll be able to cut, you know, multiple logs in a day. You potentially cut, you know, 20 logs in a day with LT15 wide, but you're going to be working all day long. And that's also assuming somebody's going to help you off-bear the material, and someone is going to assist you with the turning and the maneuvering of the log or the cant or however you're, you know, cutting your material. I don't know exactly how you're cutting material. But depending on how you're cutting material is going to be depending on how much you're going to have to handle your material. So if you're just planning on slabbing all your material out, LT15 wide is perfect. You can just, you know, mow every log down. But if you're planning on doing a bunch of conventional material and you're having to use a cant hook to continue to, you know, move your logs, you know, that's why I buy a sawmill, guys. You know, I had struggles putting a log into a trailer. I don't have equipment. Okay. Well, guess what? This has hydraulic arms that will lift the log up, and once it's on my sawmill, it's game over. You know, because I can lift it up down here. This is a toe board, so if my pith of my log isn't level, and I need to lift it up here to achieve my goals, I can lift it up here. If I need to turn the log, I can turn it. It's just going to be this way. This is not going to be the bi-directional turner. I actually don't even like that chain. I would take an LT50 wide super. It would be pretty cool. I don't want to sell this machine. I actually plan on getting LT70 to complement this machine whenever I, you know, buy a piece of land, build a house, and have a shop, and, you know, also buy a skid steer. You know, I would like to have another machine to complement this. So depending upon what you want to do is going to be depending upon what type of sawmill you have. If you just want to make slabs, get LT15 wide. But if you do need those different functions, you know, leveling your pith or turning your logs, you know, you might want to think about getting a better machine. So I've had great results with the Wood Miser. You need to learn how to align your machine. So anytime, like, I'm not taking this machine to Wood Miser, you know, 4 hours away in Missouri, to get this machine adjusted or to get this thing to fix. Like, that's all done, you know. All maintenance is going to be done by me. I'm not paying anybody to do anything on this machine. It's actually calling for an oil change right now, guys. Well, I did an oil change on the last one. You know, I haven't done it on this one. You know, I know where the filters are. I know I need to take those filters to O'Connor's or Napa or, you know, AutoZone. I'll find the filter. I know I'll probably measure how much oil it's taking out of the machine. I'll read up on how much oil needs to be put in the machine. I'll make sure, you know, my information is right. I'll add the proper oil. I'll put the new filters on. You know, the oil change will be done. You know, that's 500 hours. You know, I need to change that 500 hours. So that's one thing that I need to do. I have extra rollers in the truck right now. So this roller will fail. Look, this one's locked up right here. I'll get it unlocked up. You know, I need to throw a little bit of WD-40 in there. There's bearings in there. So I put more water on my machine than most people. Most people have more land, more space. They have a tractor or a skid steer. They don't do portable. They typically can receive logs where they're at. This machine's undercover, and they're not having to clean this machine. The reason I have to clean this machine is because I have valuable assets in here. This is, you know, this isn't. But, you know, I have a bunch of seasoned material in here, and whenever I cut logs for people, they'll have bugs. So that's why I'm always cleaning my machine. Anytime I use it, it costs $5, take it to the car wash at 10 o'clock, you know, do the situation, and, you know, kind of make a mess, but, you know, you do make a mess, and, you know, get it cleaned up, get it all oiled up, greased up,
And yeah, so this roller right now is locked up. I got it unlocked just now, but if I would have put a blade on when that roller was locked up, like it's rolling right now, you could potentially cause that roller to not to spin, okay? This roller will spin. You start cutting logs, let's say you cut logs for 3 or 4 hours, you never noticed it, but that roller hasn't been spinning because it's locked up. Well, you're gonna put a flat spot on that roller, okay? And you're like, oh my goodness, there's a flat spot on it. And then you find it's locked up, and then you're able to get it unlocked, but there's a flat spot on it. Well, that roller's compromised. You have an extra roller in the truck to replace it. Yes, I have 2. So I do need to do a little bit of maintenance on this roller. And I'm also going to do it to this roller. That's just to extend its life. I use more water than most people. You shouldn't throw water on these machines. And if you do throw water on these machines, you need to make sure you oil, lubricate it, dry it off, blow it off with blowers and stuff like that to get that water out of it, because rust is not a very good thing. And that's what's happened in that roller. There's a little bit of rust in all those little ball bearings. They kind of got stopped up. I need to turn it. I need to throw some lubricants in there, and I'll get it freed up where it's going to be able to spin freely, and it's not going to give me any issues. So those are the preventative things you need to do on the Wood-Mizer. Have a bunch of extra blades. Be prepared. Know it's going to be a long day, hard day. If you have an assistant, that'll help you with the workload. If you have a tractor or skid steer, that's going to help you, maneuver the material. My favorite customers, clients, some of them are friends, okay? I promise you, like friends, like this sawmill has, like, I've received friends out of it also, okay? Outside of, my other friends and stuff, like, I love cutting for, there's probably 4 or 5 different people in the state, like, they have skid steers and, they have everything you need to do, they just don't have the proper sawmills. They have sawmills, okay? I cut for people all over the state. I cut for probably 20 different people that have their own sawmill, okay? What does that tell you? They have their own sawmill, and they're calling me to come cut their logs. What does that tell you? I'm not trying to boast, brag, be prideful, or anything, but what does that tell you? If there's 20 people, there's been over 20 people in my state that call me and they need me to cut their logs, they know that I can cut, a bunch of logs in a day. They might have a lesser machine. They might have a Woodlands mill. They might have an LT 27 or whatever they might have. Okay, they might have a Timber King or whatever it is, Harbor Freight mill, and they have a bunch of logs and they need to be cut. And I come out to the property. I love cutting for these individuals. We mow a bunch of logs down. They help with the process. I typically don't ever touch a slab or a board. They're able to scoop all the material off my machine because they know how to operate their equipment. There's only a few people that I let scoop material off this machine. It's going to be somebody that knows how to drive a skid steer or a tractor properly. I've seen people drive skid steers and tractors improperly. Well, if you're driving a skid steer or a tractor improperly, we're not going to be as efficient as some of the other, outfits in the state because they know how to drive properly. I'm not going to allow an improper driver to drive around my machine. I have done it. I've had people poke my tires. I've had people, mess things up. Not happening ever again. Okay, so if you don't know how to drive your equipment, your tractor, your skid steer, you're not scooping the slabs off of my machine. There's only a few people that I allow them to do that because they do it for a living. They know how to operate equipment. They know what's going on. Favorite outfits is, people that just know what's going on. We're able to produce. We're able to cut, 30, 40 logs in a day. The most amount of logs I've cut in a day is maybe 65. Some of the people I've cut for, they're like, man, why would we cut 65 whenever you cut for me? Well, I might not have told you, but a lot of those were cedar logs, okay? Cedar logs are going to be a soft wood. Whenever I cut cedar, I can use the machine. I can run this machine twice as fast. I can go through that log twice as fast versus, a 20-inch wide walnut stuff. You have these beautiful walnut logs. You want me to cut them, I cut them. But we need to make sure the quality's there too, so I produce spot cuts. We're not going twice as fast on this walnut log because it needs to be, half the speed, to do what I need to do to achieve my goals. So the only time I can cut, 65 logs in a day is, when it comes to cedar. There can be a few hardwood logs in there, but majority of it is going to be cedar. I've never cut 65 walnut logs in a day. I've cut 30 or 40 in a day for a few different people. But yeah, man, I love what I do.
I don't consider like what I do like a job. So I have been working myself for 15 years, and I don't like consider like, oh, I need to go to work. It's like I literally just like love what I do. You know, I literally get to like go in the woods or go cut logs for people. I get to hang out with my kids. I take my kids to school like every day. I pick my kids up from school every single day. They're not in school right now. I'm able to walk my kids across the street every single day. I'm able to pick my kids up from school every single day. I never miss a baseball game, okay? And I'm never hung up at the office. So I have the freedom and the time freedom to do the things that I do. That's the reason I became an entrepreneur. Working for yourself for 15 years, like there might be like a sacrifice on, you know, guaranteed income because you're allowing yourself to commit your 40 hours a week for this company to get X amount of dollars, okay? Well, you're actually, if you have goals and dreams and aspirations that you want to do outside of that, your time's tied up. You can't start your own business when you work for somebody else. You can on the side, and you can on the side, and on the side you can eventually take over your current role. But you know, I decided to quit doing heating and air, you know, when I was like 19 years old. And I started working for myself, and I haven't turned back. So I'm very thankful I did that. I think, you know, the knowledge I learned, you know, doing heating and air for 4 or 5 years was very valuable. But I don't regret any decision I made from like working for somebody, like, you know, on a weekly basis, you know, for many years, to like, you know, being your own boss and like doing things that you do to like, you know, achieve your goals. Anyways, guys, I know it's an hour. God bless you guys. Thank you so much for, you know, listening to me ramble about the wood miser. I don't know if this brings value to your life or anything, but you know, I love what I do. The wood miser is super cool. Something that's pretty cool is, you know, the Woodpreneur podcast. I was on it like a few years ago. They actually reached out to me. I think her name's Jennifer or something. But yeah, they want me to be on their podcast, so I think that's pretty cool. So we're scheduling that up, and I'll be on the Woodpreneur podcast for like a second time. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, man, you know, I'm super excited for this third kid. I don't know if it's a boy or girl. I will say I have a boy and I have a girl. I desire to have another boy. It'd be super cool. I'm just thankful to have a healthy child. I'm thankful to even have a third kid. So I don't care, boy or girl. I'm extremely thankful. I'm extremely excited that I got done with my last event for the next week or so. I can completely focus on my wood miser, go do the things I need to do. I know I'm going on vacation in, you know, a few weeks, so, you know, produce. I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna grind harder than I ever grinded before, because I actually behind you. I see. Let's turn around.
Look, is it dead yet? No, it's not dead yet. Look, I think I have maybe 2 blades at my house. So let's talk about blades. So this is a 10-degree blade. You know, this is ready to eat some walnut. 10-degree blade, Jerry's Resharp. You know, I'm just gonna, insider's tip, don't buy your blades from Wood Miser. You gotta go Jerry's Resharp, guys. Ripper 37s. Is that a 7-degree? No. Yeah, so that's a 7. That eats wood too. Wow, I had a 7-degree blade on that log right there. I was completely happy. I'm typically running this 10-degree, okay? And then let's talk about this. So you see the thickness, okay? That thickness. Oh, my battery, look. 5%, guys. I gotta go soon. Look at this thickness. 1.5 inches. You know, so much thicker than that other blade. So this, I have 3 of these. These are some matte. I love those blades, but I need to order probably $480 worth of blades. I need to put an order in for a couple boxes of blades. I think that's a must. Grill is right there. You got some burl material. You know, this is just like, look at this fire, man. And this is just fire. You know, just massive, just beautiful. And then this right here, just red elm burl. That red elm burl is just, that's beautiful stuff, dude. This is all the knife scales. You can't see it, guys. I don't have adequate lighting. It's just kind of like do what you got to do to make things happen. But that's the Lucas mill. This Lucas mill sure is a pain in the butt. But, man, So let's talk about it. What about the, look there. So look how many hours this saws on it. I don't know. Let's see. How many hours does it have on it? Look, 35.2 hours. Well, guess what? Before I bought this machine in 2020, I used to spend $1,000 to sometimes $1,500 for somebody to cut my massive wood. Well, if you do that five different times, you can almost buy your own Lucas mill. So that's when I had to buy my own Lucas mill. Look, this is broken. I'm straight throttle. Whenever I turn this on, the key's not in there, but whenever I turn this on, the blade's like ready to roll, like full throttle. I don't think it's healthy for the machine, but that's currently what's set up because this broke. This needs to be extended. This actually needs to be replaced, the little throttle thing. I haven't done it. It works. It hasn't, failed, but, you got this little oil reservoir. You turn this little knob and you kind of regulate how much oil you want to put to this chain. This is a pretty new chain. Before I tackle on my next log, I have some big walnut logs I got to cut. I got to buy a couple more chains. So that will cost me $300-400 to buy a couple more chains. And then I got somebody that actually is coming here tomorrow. I told you I had 3 or 4 people that are coming here tomorrow. Somebody's actually really interested in this slab. I think it's a fantastic deal. $700, man. 7 years ago, I would have spent $700 on that piece of wood. Beautiful. But, you got the hydraulic, so this lifts the log up over here. And all these functions, I'm not in the zone right now. This machine, I don't even need to look at the switches to do it. I can't explain it. I just, know how to work it. But all those hydraulic levers do all these different functions on this machine. This clamps the log against these, backstops. This kind of, rotates the log. I've cut this off before. Zip. You won't do that ever again. If you cut this off, you'll never do it again. That's the only time I hit metal on this machine. My last machine, I hit these, okay? But I cut this off. I had it rewelded. I just took this off. My guy put it back on. Same day. I was pissed. But that blade wasn't happy. I threw it away. Always bring cones out, just random stacks. I love to turn on the lathe, so, I got a lot of, turning handles, so, some dry wood. God bless you guys. Phone's about to die. We'd go longer, but, man, it's late. Ooh, we are lit.